Good evening, good evening, whatever time it is that you're watching it. Yes, no April Fools here. We're back. Hello, Mr. Lingard. Are you well?
I'm very well, mate. How are you?
Very good indeed. Very good indeed. In fact, can't be as well as you. This time last week, we were worrying, some late drama in your game, and we got it again. But this time you came out on top of it, 18-16 at the Rams. Whoa, it was a bit of a game, this one. Conditions, bit of biff. Come on, talk us through it. How'd you pull that one off?
I'm still trying to work that out myself, to be fair. I think for us as a group, we've worked all pre-season about being difficult to beat and just sticking in there and playing to the last whistle and playing to the last tackle. And said to the boys that, look, you don't always win a game on the last play, but there might come a time when you need to do that, and that was this week. And fortunate for us, we managed to do it. And you mentioned the conditions and stuff there. Yeah, the wind were really, really bad. I mean, we kicked off the first kick-off of the game with no intention of going short, and the ball blew back into our own half. So that's how windy it was. Very, very stop-start. There were 31 penalties and 6 against in the game, 19 errors. So it never really got into a flow. I think the conditions impacts on that a little bit as well. But fortunate for us, we managed to get on the right side of that late drama. I think it's a harsh result on Dewsbury. I thought they handled the game a lot better than what we did. But you take an ugly victory over a pretty loss, don't you?
Well, I mean, it was very similar to last week, wasn't it? In terms of from your perspective, because you led a few. I think you led last week, and then you went behind, and you come back, didn't you? I think come back twice. I can't remember. I know you came back, and it was the same in this one. They got off to a really strong start, 12-0. You got yourself back to 12-all, and then they take a 16-12 lead. You must be sitting there going, "It's last week all over again." This.
Yeah, that's sort of what we're thinking. The try that we conceded to make it 16-12 as well was a really poor one from our point of view. Where they play the ball 2 or 3 meters away from the touchline, they've shown it the open and come back the short side, and we've got 2 defenders sat on that short side who just sunk in on the attack, and he slips out and scored in the corner. So pretty soft try for us to concede, and we thought we were getting back into the game and a bit of possession, and we just kept coming up with silly errors again. And as I say, I thought we got a penalty 30 seconds left in the game. We tried to go wide on player 1, which ended up with a forward pass, and Dewsbury get the put in at the scrum, and you think the game's done and dusted with 20 seconds on the clock. They put the ball in the scrum, we push, the knock on at the base of the scrum, we reform the scrum. I look back at the timekeeper, ask him how long is left, and he says 10 seconds. So we've got one play. So the ball goes in the scrum, Jordan Lilly gets the ball, and he runs up his own backside a little bit, goes left, goes right, goes backwards, out goes, and then it's just pretty much it's the old wide to west tail, and then Jordan got the ball back again from I think Joe Brown and found his old mate Gillian. He cut back off his left foot and managed to get in there, and then he just absolutely nailed a pretty much touchline conversion in them conditions, which I thought to hold his nerve and actually execute that kick was just phenomenal in them conditions.
Well, we saw that all weekend, weren't we? The goal kickers. I mean, Warrington against Leeds, case in point in terms of goal kicking, how vitally important that was on the day. But yeah, you come out on the right side of it. Great win for you, mate. Delighted for you there. We go over to Doncaster, 74-6. We expected a Donny win. It was a convincing win. Our old mate Reece Lynn again. We gave him praise last week. He was on the score sheet again. Was Reece double this time around? I mean, just as we expected. But in terms of points difference and position in the league, a great win for Donny. They took full advantage, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. And looking at their team, I think they've rotated quite a few players from the week before as well. And we're prepping for Donny this week, and it's difficult to know what sort of team they're going to put out, because week on week it changes a little bit based on, I guess, who they're playing and who they want to rotate around there. So I think they're looking fairly healthy at Doncaster at the minute with the players that they've got. And I think whichever 17 they put in there, it's an extremely strong 17, isn't it? With the strong middles that they've got, outside backs quality as well. So like I said, I think the result was as we expected, really. And unfortunately, Paul Wood decided to resign after the game, didn't he? And Anthony Murray stepped up into that role. So, I wish Woody all the best with that one, and Muzzler as well, taking over the reins there.
Do you sense a shift in strategy now at Swinton? Because obviously we've been talking about Woody and his philosophy in terms of the kids and this, that, the other. obviously, when Anthony Murray went there, I was a bit, oof, what does this mean? But as you say, it was actually Woody who offered his resignation, and Swinton, I think, in their response said that they reluctantly accepted it as well. So it does sound like it was a Paul Wood decision, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I think you always get that impression outside looking in when a head coach comes in as an assistant coach. But I didn't really have any of them thoughts and feelings. I just thought we was leaving Whitehaven, the extended commitments, travelling up there, working in Lancashire as he does. I don't think he could commit to the travel and the time that we're taking to go to Whitehaven, and the time that he wants to spend in the game, and he obviously wants to be involved in the game. It just made sense for him to move closer to home, to a club near where he lives, and still have that ability to contribute to the game. So I don't think there were any ulterior motives there on anybody's behalf when Muzz going in there. And as you say, Paul offered his resignation himself. And will the change tack? I don't think so. I think Muzz has got a real good record of working with low budgets and getting the best out of teams that maybe names on papers aren't the most recognised. And I think what Swinton have got, they've got a lot of young kids there, and I think they just need some experienced people, maybe 2 or 3 experienced players to help develop these younger kids as well. I know they've lost some of them experienced ones that they had at the start of the season, and maybe need to bring a couple more in now just to try and strengthen that team and try and bring a bit more belief and I guess a bit of know-how and structure with the young players, because it's difficult when you're getting beat week in, week out, and certainly when some of the scores are quite heavy as they are, to not get demoralised at times. And these young kids, they're wanting to develop, they're wanting to learn, and they just maybe need a couple of old heads in there just to be realistic and get them around the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we wish Anthony Murray well, and of course we wish Paul Wood well. Rochdale, they've had a sorry losing streak of Rochdale, but a good win against Gould, 35 points to 10. Gould now really starting to do it tough after what can be described as a pretty promising opening 5 games for them. They're starting to find it pretty tough. But Rochdale, like I say, they were off the back of, I think it was a 4-game losing streak in Championship Rugby. They needed this, got off to a flyer, got a really handsome lead, 16-10 at half-time, they're 16-0 up at one point. Gould did, try to rally to a point, but in the end, they got the job done. That must feel good for Rochdale. Yeah,
definitely. It's never nice when you're on that losing streak of 4 games or 5 games, however long it might be. I said before, it's a little bit like an habit is losing. You can get into an habit of winning games, and then when you're in that process of winning them close games, you sometimes win games that you'd ordinarily lose, and vice versa. When you're losing games, if it is a tight game, then you quite often come on the wrong side of the ledger in them games as well. So it's really important that when you're on that losing run, that you try and get off it as soon as possible. And fortunately for Rochdale, they've done that. And as you say, Gould now starting to maybe struggle with a couple of results now, but they'll be looking themselves to try and get back onto winning ways as soon as possible, because some of the players they've got in that team, they're really, really strong, and I think they've brought maybe 1 or 2 people in on loan this week as well to strengthen them. So they'll be looking at getting back to winning ways as soon as possible.
Absolutely, great win for them. Another win for Oldham, 44 points to 0. Jack Walker, pivotal in this game. I've got on record many a time saying I think Jack Walker's a really solid one. Proved it in this. A very commanding win against Hunslet. We backed Oldham in this, but did we expect a nilly?
I didn't know. I expected it to be a lot closer game. I think we expected Oldham to win based on it being the strong team that they've got, and also home advantage as well. I weren't expecting that scoreline, to be fair. I thought the game would be a lot closer than what it actually was, and I guess Hunslet themselves now are in that predicament where they're losing games. They've lost a few games that I think, like the game against us at their home ground, and also the Widnes game as well. 2 real close games that could have gone either way, and you win them 2 games, and it changes their belief, and it changes maybe some of their other performances as well. But now they're in that period where they're losing games continuously. They need something to come through now and get a victory. I think a couple of people have announced yesterday they've retired as well. I think so they're looking at getting players in to bolster their team as well. So it's tough times at Hunslet at the minute in terms of results on the field, but also bolstering the squad off the field as well. So they need a bit of good news.
Absolutely. Big win for Oldham. Of course, they're now going in the right direction again all of a sudden, which is good for them. Hurricanes, again, another win for Midland Hurricanes, 20 points to 12 away at Keighley, inspired by Lewis Else. Well, you expect? I mean, I keep going back to this. I think it's remarkable where Midland are currently at. I mean, they just seem to have really stepped up this year.
Yeah, they have, and I think with the league format as it is, you're playing the teams sort of the 5 above, 5 below in that league format that we had. So a lot of their games will be against teams that were in League One last year. So I think they've strengthened as a group this year. I think they're a stronger playing squad than they were last year. So you would expect them to do better against the teams that were in League One last year. So I guess they're one of the teams that are benefiting from this new format of the league, of playing teams based on last year's positions within that format. So. But you've got to win the games, just because you might be perceived to have slightly better fixtures on paper. You've got to win the games, and they've got 11 points in the league. I think they're sat 3rd or 4th in the league at this moment in time. So full credit to them. They're doing really well. I think Lewis Else, League One Player of the Year. I think the year before, I think it was, or Young Player of the Year. And I think he's an absolutely outstanding halfback, and I think he's got the potential to go even higher in the game as well. So it's certainly a player to keep an eye on for me.
Well, I'd say a player that you need to keep an eye on, and he had a cracking game at North Wales Crusaders. I'm led to believe he's Junior Westwood, former Academy Warrington product there. He's junior, had a phenomenal game in the Crusaders' 52-20 win over Whitehaven. That'll feel good. Of course, it was announced prior to this game that Kristin Inu was going to join Luluai at North Wales in the top job. It's all change at North Wales, isn't it?
It is, yeah. The sounds that you're hearing off the field, it all seems very, very positive, and it all seems very good. I guess from a Crusaders point of view and a rugby league point of view, we need to see the proof in that. We've heard this a few times at several different clubs in the past, where they've got all these plans to get everything structured off the field and what they're going to achieve on the field. So I think it's all very, very positive. Again, on paper, let's see it put into action now. So hopefully it keeps moving forward for North Wales, but also for the benefit of the game as well.
Absolutely. Some very nice tries as well in that game. They really executed well in that match. I want to go over to Salford. Really spirited performance. Of course, 2 teams at the bottom of the table. Halifax, good. Well, I've had a good couple of results, but Salford ran them close here, 28 points to 22 at Salford. You talk about good news stories. They're progressing. They're progressing well at Salford, considering where they started the season from. It's going to be a long season, we know that. But very surprised to see Mike Grady leave this week. That came as a bit of a surprise, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Again, I think it was announced that it was work commitments or commitments outside of rugby league. Is that one of them mutual termination, mutual agreement things? I don't know from outside looking in, but yeah, it did come out of nowhere. Did that one? It certainly surprised me, and surprised I think many others in the game as well, based on where they came at the start of the season. And you need somebody, I think, with a little bit of stability to see the team through what's going to be a difficult season. But yeah, close game against Halifax. I think Halifax was struggling for players even 24 hours prior to the game as well. I know we had a couple of calls from people looking for players as well, but we were struggling with numbers ourselves. So they got special dispensation from the RFL to bring players in after the loan or registration deadline for that game. So to get the victory in them conditions is massive for Halifax, and they keep moving forward.
Yeah, they had Ben Crooks, didn't he, at fullback? I mean, he's been a versatile player, hasn't he, Ben? I mean, how old's he now? 60? I mean, he's been going for years, but he's still there, isn't he? He's Ben.
He is, yeah. And he started the season, but he's done what a lot of people coming towards the twilight of their career do, where they move from the edge and move in. So he moved from centre to back row at the start of the season, but he seems to move back out again now and gone right as far back as it can possibly go. So I think it's needs must at this moment in time, isn't he? And I think with his experience and his know-how, he knows how to play several different positions. So I'm sure it's not going to be a concern for him playing fullback.
Must have given his legs an MOT.
Yeah, definitely.
He passed and he was in. Anyway, there you go. London 40, Batley 12. I tell you, we've seen bigger scores, especially at London. We've got to take that into account as a home game for London. Batley gone down there, put 12 on the board, 40 points to 12. It's not it's as score lines have gone in London this year. It's not a bad result for Batley.
No, it's not. And we did an opposed session with Batley on the Thursday prior to the game as well. And, they were really struggling with players. They only had one hooker, Alistair Leakey, started on the bench, and they started with Evan Hodgson at 9, who's a 13-stroke back rower. So they were struggling for numbers themselves. I think Lucas Walshaw was still out, Josh Wood's still out as well, and several other people. And I think they lost a winger in the warm-up to an HIA as well, which is a strange one. So even before the game, they were losing players. But, to go down there, it's difficult to say getting beat by 40 points to 12 or whatever it was is a good victory. But I think with everything that they were going through prior to the game and also just before kick-off as well, to put in a performance like that and dig deep, it's good for them. But, that London juggernaut just keeps on rolling, doesn't it? And you can't see them losing many games this season, if any at all.
No, you can't. Newcastle 38, Workington 8. Newcastle another win for them. Jordan Lee, I think he's a class player. Again, we're talking fullbacks. I think Jordan's having a great season down there. I'm also led to believe Taylor Pemberton had a bit of a game for Newcastle as well. Dominant, I think, was some of the words that I read in some of the full-time reports.
Yeah, we mentioned a little bit last week, didn't we, about Newcastle, about trying to get that consistency now where they've been maybe a little bit up and down at times with some of their results and performances, but they seem to be developing that consistency now, and I think that's a pretty dominant result as well. And again, similar to maybe the Midlands with the fixture list, that Newcastle being effectively the last team in the Division, Team 21 as it kicked off, they would, again, on paper, they have the easiest fixture list of the season of any other team, and they've considerably strengthened their playing roster this year. So you would expect them to win the majority of their games this year and secure a playoff place, I would imagine, by the end of the season.
Yeah, no, really encouraging, very, very encouraging win for them as well. Got to be said. Well done indeed. Good. I'd say what was encouraging as well. The Salford game, over 3,000. Salford. That's encouraging. That's
it is definitely, and it's, again, like I said previously, it's important that when these new two teams come back in as new teams, and Salford have gone from being a Super League team, and they're now, I guess, they starting again in the Championship. It's really important that we don't lose them fans, because it's really, really easy to get a bit demoralised and disheartened with everything. But as long as they can keep them fans coming through the gate and developing and getting better week on week, month on month, year on year, then when they do get back to potentially getting in a position to be in Super League again, then they've got that fan base there. And it's really important they just keep coming through the gates. Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more. Some other reports as well from the Championship. Kyle Eastmond is being linked heavily with Huddersfield, or certainly a lot of people pushing Kyle Eastmond name forward for the Huddersfield job. Do you see that as happening? I don't know if I'm surprised by that or not, if I'm being perfectly honest. Your assessment of those rumours?
It's a difficult one. He had a real good season last year, didn't he? In Championship, his first year in Championship, performed really well. I think he had the opportunity. I'm led to believe. I think he got touted out for the Oldham job when that came up. Whether that's rumours or not, but that was a strong rumour that he got touted for that and stuck with Halifax and showed the loyalty of staying there with the I guess the things that have happened with Halifax, them going out of business, coming back in, maybe the instability that they've got at this moment in time. If he does get offered that job, does that mean that that's more attractive for him to go into a full-time secure position rather than being in the situation where he's at with Halifax at the minute, where they're now a developing club again, real small playing roster, and they're still trying to get people in permanently and on loan as well to get them through the season. So it's a difficult one. As a coach, does he believe that he's served his apprenticeship and is ready to go in there full time? There's a lot of things that you need to take into consideration, because if you go too soon, it could be your only opportunity. But I think he's done well with Halifax last year. I guess he's earned the right to be in the frame and being in contention for that position. It's all rumours at this moment in time, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors where Huddersfield are concerned. I just think, obviously, they gave Luke Robinson a shot at it. He was a young up-and-coming coach. I think, when you're just reading the narrative in terms of what they're looking for, where they want to be, and all the rest of it, it just surprises me a little bit. I thought maybe, I mean, again, there's a lot of rumours where Steve McNamara is concerned. I think there's no doubt. I think McNamara has been approached. Whether he wants to go or not, again, it depends who you listen to on that. I'd be surprised to see Steve leave Warrington for Huddersfield, but that doesn't surprise me. You know, those rumours don't surprise me based on where Huddersfield are and where they want to get to in comparison to Kyle. I just think that increased experience perhaps is needed at the minute at Huddersfield.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think the uncertainty around Huddersfield, you know, we're talking end of the season with IMG gradings, and they were they 14th in the rankings as well. You've got London that everybody expects to be in Super League next year. So does it go to a 15-team Super League? Does somebody drop out? If somebody drops out, then I guess the favourites are going to be Huddersfield. So if you're an established coach like a Steve Mack, is he going to put himself in a position where there's that uncertainty there that there could be in Super League at this moment in time, but in 6 months' time, they could be back to Championship and there could be a part-time team again. So there's that uncertainty around the club. Huddersfield talking long-term about the five-year project and a 5-year plan. Does that mean that they want a younger, up-and-coming coach to develop and go through that 5-year plan with them, or do they need an experienced coach who's been there, seen it and done it to get them through that 5 years and have that stability to get through that 5-year plan? Again, there's a lot of things in the equation there that need to be taken into account, and I guess there's some unknowns in there from both parties about, you know, if you're a coach going into Huddersfield, you're needing them reassurances. If you are a well-established full-time coach that you're going to be in Super League, but at this moment in time, I don't think Huddersfield can promise that.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, but again, good from a Championship perspective that actually Championship coaches are being touted for Super League roles. That's to be celebrated. That you know that's happening, and of course, you know, up and coming as well. You know, Kyle very much in the early stage of his coaching career. That's a positive. But like I say, did surprise me a little bit. Be very interested to see who gets that job in the next few weeks or so. Speaking though about dropping down, of course, Featherstone out of Super League, out of Championship this year. Read it this week that the fans are doing a lot of fundraising for the consortium or any consortium that might come in and rescue the club. Various functions. They're doing one on Good Friday as well, I'm led to believe, at the clubhouse. They've already raised 30 grand. Which is some feat. And, you know, this is all about keeping, you know, you were talking about Salford, keeping the fans there. And that's what a bit of this is about. It's about even though Featherstone, the team isn't on the field, Featherstone, the fans, they're keeping that community, they're keeping that rugby league community, they're raising money, they're doing their bit to hopefully get Featherstone back on the field next year. So it's a really good news story, that, in terms of, you know, rugby league in the community and what it means to people.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you talk about a community club, there's probably very, very few clubs outside of Featherstone Rovers that rely on the community more than what they do, and vice versa. You know, the community rely on rugby league within that town. You know, it's absolutely huge, and it's a massive part of the culture and the heritage of Featherstone. You know, so the sooner that we get Featherstone back in Championship, the better it's going to be for everybody. I think it's. I think again, it's really important that it happens very, very soon, because we know that when you get out of the habit of going to rugby league games or get out of the habit of doing anything, as we saw in COVID, that you get out of the habit of doing things, and it's very, very difficult to get back into it. The new habit becomes that you don't do it. I think it's really interesting as well that we see throughout all games in Championship and even in some Super League, we're seeing Featherstone Rovers shirts at the ground. You know, we had some at the Dewsbury game on Sunday. You know, so they're trying to keep themselves in that habit of going to a rugby league game. Yeah, it might not be a Featherstone Rovers game, but they're still going to grounds and they're still watching a game of live rugby league and not getting out of the habit of doing that, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I saw something in the press as well about, I think, one of the local councillors writing a letter to the RFL. I guess with the concerns about a potential consortium or like a potential bid that were coming in, that they didn't believe it was in the interests of the club. I don't know too much about that, but it sounds like somebody wants to go in, maybe under a smoke screen of taking the club over, but actually selling the ground off and using it for building houses or whatever it might be. So I think whoever does come in at Featherstone, it's got to be, I think if it could be a fan-owned consortium or organisation, that'd be perfect initially. You know, we don't want the wrong people coming into rugby league and with the wrong motives and selling, you know, having a fire sale on the actual facilities and the ground itself.
Well, we saw that at Salford, didn't we? You know, and unfortunately, that takeover didn't happen because, I mean, there was no question that rugby league was secondary there at Salford. I think it's pretty clear that was the case. And you're right, Featherstone, the same. It needs to be for rugby league purposes, and it needs to be with that at heart. Another good news story as well. I don't know if you saw this, but Brett Ferris has been granted a testimony. He's been some pro, Brett Ferris, hasn't he?
He has, yeah, and he keeps going, doesn't he? Keeps getting better and better as well. But he keeps performing. He keeps knocking out them performances and scoring tries as well. And is it 450 plus games that he's now played? To do that, it's just
in a tough position. Right?
Yeah,
I
think for me as well, I think he maybe needs to go and speak to somebody that he actually enjoys playing that many games in rugby league, getting bashed about and doing it for 450 plus games. I think anybody who does that has maybe got something wrong with them. But it's yeah, I think I got to just over 200 games, and that were enough for me, and I would done and dusted. But anybody who goes to 450 plus, it's a phenomenal achievement.
It is. It's incredible. Absolutely great. He's been a great player. Been a great player, great servant as well to quite a few clubs. Let's be fair. Easter weekend, of course. Remember the days where it was back-to-backs, Fridays and Easter Mondays. I mean, you talk about players putting their bodies through it as much as the fans. I mean, in saying that though, you know, I think Good Friday attendances tend to be good, but Easter Mondays tended to drop off. That was my always take on that. I think it's absolutely been right, hasn't it, that the Easter period was changed to one fixture.
Yeah, I think so. I think just for the safety of the players, and I guess for the product as well. I think when we got towards the end of the Friday Monday games, there were a lot of teams that were picking and choosing which squad they were going to play and prioritising either the Friday or the Monday game. And one of the games were a little bit of a blowout at times where they were playing a lot of reserve or academy kids in them games as well. So I think just for the product as well, I think it's been really positive that it's only one game over that 4-day period. And I think certainly for the players who put their bodies on the line in a full-blooded sport like rugby league, it's very, very difficult to play on a Friday, and more often than not, it were an 7:30 kickoff on a Friday and a dinner time kickoff on a Monday as well. So you weren't really getting the 72-hour period where you having that period for recovery. And now we know more about the science about it. That we know that 48 hours after a game, you need that period of time for your body to recover and recuperate. So you take that 48 period out of it, and then you go straight back into a game as well. I think the potential for injuries were significantly higher as well.
No, absolutely, 100% the right thing to have done. Of course, from a fan's perspective, obviously, it doesn't hurt the pocket as much either. Let's be fair on that. Right, I mean, Rivals Round, here we go. Rivals Round is this weekend, and the Battle of Cumbria is on, isn't it? Whitehaven against Workington Town, both side by side in the league currently. Both of them have got that distinction of having draws in their results this season as well. Could it be a draw?
It could quite easily be a draw. Like I said, they're mirroring each other's performances and results, aren't they? So it's I guess you can, in any sort of derby, but particularly Cumbrian derby, I guess you can throw the form book out the window, can't you? And it's whichever team performs best on the day. And hopefully, again, for Cumbrian Rugby League, we can get a real bumper crowd up there and potentially see maybe 2,500 hopefully up there and get people out there watching the game, supporting the game in Cumbria.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Widnes have been the left outs on this one. They're going to Barrow, not quite a Rivals Round there. There's always maybe one or two where you go, really? But Barrow taking on Widnes. But that said, should be a great game. I mean, both of these two teams in the upper echelons of the league. Like I say, this could be a real interesting tussle. Which way do you see this one going?
You know what? I don't know. I really don't know. I think, as you say, it's not necessarily Rivals Round in terms of location, but Rivals Round in terms of league position and way that they've performed this year. I think it's a great clash, and it could come round to the home field advantage. Could just nip it, and the travel on the day and whatnot, and just that home field advantage, and it could just tip Barrow's way. But Widnes, you never write Widnes off with the way that they've performed this season, and the gritty and the grind results out, don't they? And that's what you need to do when you go up to Barrow. You need to go up there, and you need to go with the game plan that you're going to complete your sets. You're going to put them in the corner and make them work hard to come out of their own 20, because Barrow like to play. So if you're winning that field position battle, they might try and play around you and come up with a few more errors. So you've got to be willing to go up there and roll your sleeves up and get your elbows and knees dirty. And I think for Widnes to win that game, that's what they need to do. So it's got the potential to be a real good game as this.
The one inspiration in terms of getting around people, Mapalangi and Gary at Castleford at the weekend. By Lord, did they master that? He's been some player, eh? That Mapalangi. He's been quality.
Yeah, he has. And I think if you're at Castleford, you're looking at trying to renew his contract ASAP, aren't you, and get him tied down for a little bit longer.
Yeah, he's very, very good. Very, very good indeed. Right, let's get to your game against Donny. Oh, this is going to be a tough game for yourselves, no question. Donny in great form. Should be a belter. Your thoughts going into the game?
Yeah, we're struggling, mate, to be fair, bodies-wise. We've got a couple of people that have got some appointments on Thursday evening. So normally it's the last training session before you go to before you name your team, or as you name your team, last training session. But I'm not going to be able to name a team until Friday morning. I don't think we've got one of his players got an appointment at 9:00 on Thursday evening to try and get him cleared for the game. So numbers wise, we're struggling a little bit at this moment in time. But it's you play the cards that you dealt, don't you? And we'll go out there and we've got a bit of a game plan that we're going to try and enact to try and test Doncaster, because they've been absolutely flying this year, results and performance wise. And as I mentioned early on, it's difficult to sort of pick what 17 they're going to go with, because every week the 17 seems to change a little bit based on I guess rotating players in, rotating players out, and looking at the fixtures and prioritising certain fixtures and certain team selections, I guess. So we know it's going to be difficult. Hopefully on-field advantage for us can help, but we know that Doncaster have got threats across the park, so they'll probably enjoy playing on that pitch as well. So it's South Yorkshire derby. Let's get people down there again. Let's hopefully try and fill that ground up and have a good attendance and a good performance.
Well, let's hope so. Like I say, Doncaster only lost, I think, Midland, isn't it? They've only lost one game this season, and that was to Midland Hurricanes. So You're right. They're sitting pretty there in second, just behind London. It's going to be a test for you, mate. It's going to be a test for you, but
it is. But that's these are the games that you want to play, and these are the games you want to be involved in. You don't want to be involved in games where you're winning by 70 or 80 points. You want to test yourself against the best, and as the league table says, that Doncaster in the top two of the league, so they're one of the best teams in the league. So these are the games we want to be testing ourselves against. And again, whether we've got our full first choice 17 on the field, or it's a mixture of the squad of 25 that we've got, then it lets you know where you are as a squad. It lets you know where you need to improve. And we're nowhere near the finished article. We've had games this year where we performed pretty good, games where we performed pretty bad. But it'll really highlight where we are against one of the best teams in the division this week.
Absolutely. Oldham, Rochdale, both coming off the back of wins, which will give Rochdale some spirit going over to this game against Oldham. A quarter four kickoff. This one for Oldham. They're a bit all over the place, aren't they? On Good Friday, the Whitehaven one's 1 o'clock. Then yours and Barrows are both 3 o'clock. Then there's this one at 4:45. Your gut tells you, based on Rochdale's recent form, it should be an Oldham win. But that said, momentum has got to start somewhere, hasn't it? And Rochdale, like I say, will go into this in better spirits. Yeah,
they will. If they'd have gone into this game on the back of 5 defeats, then you could have seen might be staring down the barrel of every defeat. But as you say, getting that victory at the weekend, it gives them that newfound confidence that they can go into this game and really test Oldham. But you would say, as a betting man, that your money will be on Oldham in this game. They've found a little bit of form the last 2 games, beating themselves and beating Hunslet as well. So they'll be flying high on confidence.
Batley back at home. They'll be pleased to be back at home. Playing Dewsbury, of course, who you saw at close quarters at the weekend, just gone. 5 o'clock kickoff. This should be a bit of a battle. This one, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think this will be a belter. I really do. Dewsbury, as we found out at the weekend, they're very, very difficult to beat. And I think if you've got a team that's willing to graft and grind for each other and put themselves in positions where they're willing to defend their own goal line, as well as what Dewsbury did, then you've got a lot of boxes ticked. They've got a lot of young players of Dewsbury. Brought Danny Addy in to give them that little bit of experience. I thought he was outstanding for Dewsbury at the weekend as well, and he certainly helps their middle unit. And he's the link between that middle unit and the outside backs and the half backs as well. So his experience and now will certainly serve them well. Batley, they brought Kane Robin on loan from Castleford, and I think they're going to announce another Super League loan signing as well today. I'm not sure if it's been announced, so I'm not going to mention it, but I think they've got another one coming in. So they're significantly strengthened as well for this game, and I think they've done that because they've highlighted the importance of this game. They need to be winning this game, certainly at home and against Dewsbury, who are above them in the table. So if they can get 2 points off Dewsbury, well, it claws them back towards them in the table. So again, I think it's a real mouth-watering ties, this one, and everyone in Derby, they're always great.
Yeah, Kane's a player. Hopefully, he comes through that unscathed, and there's no doubt he adds a lot of quality. If it's a fast ruck, if it's a fast ruck, then that could be quite a potent weapon. It really could be. Gould Vikings taking on Newcastle Thunder. Like I say, Gould at the moment just seem to be struggling after a reasonable start. Newcastle, you would expect to come through this and keep that march up the table. Fourth at the moment, Newcastle. You'd expect a Newcastle win on this one?
Yeah, potentially, but I don't think it's as cut and dried as maybe the form book suggests. I think we might see a bit of a reaction from Gould, and again, as mentioned, I think Gould have got a loan signing coming in from Super League, which again I don't think has been announced as yet, so I don't want to chuck that one out there just in case it doesn't happen. But it'll be that if and when it's announced, that'll be a significant strengthening for them. So I think this will again. I think all these ties that we're talking about, they've got the potential to be real close ties and real great games. I think this is one of them that, as you say, you might suggest you tip towards Newcastle, but I don't think it's as clear cut as that.
No. Keighley Cougars taking on Hunslet. Hunslet have had a torrid few weeks, haven't they? Keighley, of course, as well. Not having the greatest. A bit up and down. A bit up and down is what I would say on this one. But certainly from a Hunslet perspective, they need to try and improve on last week without question. Is this another one where you think home field advantage possibly gets Keighley home? Yeah,
possibly, and I think form comes into that mindset as well now with Hunslet. There.
No, we have a technical. He's back. He's back.
I'm back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Go on, carry on.
I think we're Hunslet in that mould now. Out there, they're used to losing games, so they need to get out of that mould as soon as they possibly can. But they'll probably target this one as a game that could kickstart their season and give them that little bit of confidence. And I think they'll be out there in that low market this week trying to get some people in just to strengthen them with a couple of people that they've lost this week as well. And again, I think maybe home field advantage could be the key, but Keith are coming off the back of a defeat themselves, aren't they? So again, it's a difficult one to call as this one.
We saw Huddersfield Giants remarkably turn the tables on Wigan at the weekend. Of course, Luke Robinson was parted ways with Huddersfield, and as often happens when there's a changing of the guard, but in this one, well, both have got a change of the guard, so it's quite interesting. Swinton taking on Salford. Do you know what? As it's a bottom of the table clash, it's a fascinating one. Both desperate for a win. I feel like Salford have shown probably a little bit more in this one, but it would be a remarkable start to Andy's Swinton career, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. As you said there, I think I agree with you. I think in terms of performances and results, I think Salford have looked a little bit more resilient. In some of the defeats that they've had, they've not conceded quite as many points, and they've actually got victory as well. So I think you'd edge slightly towards Salford on this one. But as you say, we've got Anthony Murray who's there at Swinton. He'll be looking for a reaction from his guys as well. And will that change of a voice in the dressing room change? Maybe is there going to be sort of a tactical change about how they play or not? I don't know. That could have an impact on it as well. But I think I'd be tipping slightly towards Salford on this one, just because they've in the games that they have lost, and they've shown a little bit more resilience in the defeats.
Yeah. But that said, I think from a Swinton perspective, they'll look at this and go, if we're going to get a W, this could be it. A home game taking on Salford, who are equally down there. I mean, just looking at the for and against, very, very similar, very similar. Have they played the same amount of games? Yeah, they have as well. They both played 7 games apiece. 79 and 76 points in Salford's favour in the attack. 324 conceded for Salford, 336 for Swinton. So like I say, you know, everything about that, Swinton, do you know what? If you're going to get a W, they've probably got to be lining this one up, but I just think Salford will probably just nick it. And then again, not so much a derby, but, you know, it's the best they can do. North Wales Crusaders taking on Midland. They're both a little bit out there. You know what? North Wales win this. Do you know what? When we actually look at it with a fresh pair of eyes, you know, Barrow, Midland, if you're going to not have a derby, there you go. Widnes, North Wales, and especially the links between Widnes and North Wales. What's been going on with squads, etc. Yeah, maybe that could have been the game. I don't know. But anyway, we've got what we've got. North Wales take on Midland, and again, you know, good win for North Wales. New men at the helm, culturally, etc. It was impressive. Like I say, Judy Westwood had a great game. They've got the personnel in, you know, they've got the likes of Greg Edens, Deck Pattons. You know, Judy Westwood, I think, a really good little pro, very, very good indeed. So they've got some tools there. Yeah. Midland this season. I've just been grinding these results out. Do you know what? I don't know.
Yeah. It is a difficult one, isn't it? And that you know, when you're looking at the fixture list and you're sort of tipping one way or tipping the other, and you're on the fence. This is what you want in a competitive sport, isn't it? You know, you don't want to look at a fixture list and where you can pick the coup on every single week. You know, this is what you want, and I think Midlands have been, I guess, a bit more consistent this year in their performance and in their results. North Wales have been a little bit up and down at times and inconsistent. So does that consistency just edge it slightly towards Midlands? I think if I had to nail my colours to the mast and I'm pinned into a corner, I've got to pick somebody, I'd probably just tip with Midlands on this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. I could be, you know, I could be pushed the other way as well. That's depends which way the seesaw swings, aren't it?
Yeah, I mean, and do you know what's uncanny when you actually look at some? I mean, and I know that you can't read into this because injuries and different personnel were on the field at the time, but when you actually look at who they have played, so taking Newcastle as a case in point, you know, North Wales 30 points to 20, Midlands 28-10. And I'm right. That was one of the North Wales wins as well against Newcastle. That was one that really took us by surprise, if you remember at the time. You then look at Batley the other way around. You know, 30 points to 12 win for the Midland Hurricanes. It was a 30-16 loss for Batley. So massive swings. You know, trying to use measures. It's very difficult to do, I know. But when you just look at that, you go, do you know what? That's a difficult one to call. I'm going to go again. Actually, you know what? Just for sport, and we'll see you next week. I'll go North Wales.
Yeah, why not?
I'll go North Wales.
We'll have a pint on it for next time we're out.
Yeah. Get a pint of Guinness. Pint of Guinness on the line. Yeah. Who comes? You're feeling good about that all of a sudden.
If I win, if I lose, then we're not going out to drink again.
No, you're confident because there's no way you're betting a pint of Guinness if you're not. So, man, happy days, wonderful stuff. Well, hey, there you go. And those, anyway, just to tidy this up, let's just quickly remind people when these games are. So, Good Friday, Whitehaven, Barrow, Sheffield, Oldham, Batley, and Goole. They compete on Good Friday. Easter Saturday is Keighley against Hunslet, a 1 o'clock kickoff there. And then Easter Sunday, you know, Swinton, Salford at 2, North Wales, Midland Hurricanes at 3. That's where you're getting your rugby league action in the Championship this week. Who's to say where we're going to be? And then just remind me, Craig, I mean, obviously the week after it's going to be Challenge Cup. Are you back to the 1895 next week, or is it Championship still? I've not looked that far ahead. I'm trying to think.
You know what, you're asking me a question there. Now you've thrown me.
See, that's it. It's a coaching cliche. You take a week at a time. That's
we've got London away.
Of course you have. Yes, it's still the Championship. Yeah. Bet you wish you had the 1895.
Yeah, thanks for
Happy days, good time. But anyway, there you go. Another great show with Craig. We will, of course, be back next week for more Championship Rugby League with Craig Lingard. I've got to go and start, earning some pocket money off the wife to buy this Guinness. So we're going to bid you all a very fond evening. Enjoy your Championship Rugby League this week. We'll be back next week. All the best. Bye for now.